All right. The last position of the day. So first of all, thank you, Gabe, for the opportunity, and thanks everyone for your time this morning. This has been a great experience so far. I've learned quite a bit. I've had some awesome conversations as well. I wanted to start with this quote that was actually just alluded to a couple minutes ago that I'm sure everybody has seen in some form or fashion, so this is not new and different material here. But what's important is if you just acknowledge the fact that over the past 15 years, more than 50% of the companies that were on the Fortune 500 have now disappeared. If you read down there, the average life expectancy was 75 years back in 1995. Now it's 15 years. And what this means is that change is the new norm. So a lot of the points that we'll be talking about here have already been brought up, so that's nice that we're all on the same page. And based on the fact that change is the new norm, we feel strongly that digital technologies are really the main culprit for that change. If we take a step back and look at over the past 20 some odd years, you can really identify some key trends brought about by major advances in digital technology. Starting back in the mid-90s and the early 2000s with systems of record, this is all about automation 1.0 and the initial advances of the web. Moving forward into the era that we kind of find ourselves in now, or at least coming out of, which is all around systems of engagement. So things like content, commerce, mobile, social, a lot of what we talked about today in many ways. And we feel that organizations are on this precipice into the new era, which is what we're calling systems of intelligence, which is understanding how to help organizations leverage their investments in what they've made around Wave 2, so content, commerce, social, mobile, and then really be propelled into this new era. What's been awesome is that we've talked about a lot of these new tools and technologies today that are all around creating new business models, value propositions, and growth engines. Everything from virtual reality, augmented reality. We had a great conversation a little while ago around Watson and all things cognitive. Gavin's presentation on chatbots I'm a personal fan of that. There's just a lot of cool opportunities there, all the way through to things like voice. I have to admit that I've made the mistake of buying, for those people who don't know it, the second generation of the Amazon Dash. It basically just makes shopping on Amazon the easiest thing that's ever happened. And the problem is it is a magnet that connects onto my fridge at home. So now I have everyone in my family can just kind of basically pick up this device and just say whatever product they want, and it gets added to the cart. So pretty interesting stuff, but it also kind of hits the bill pretty hard. So at the end of the day, like I said, we've already kind of heard these things all morning. At the end of the day, what does this mean, right? So what? What's the whole point of all these new opportunities to impact digital experiences? One of the main questions that we ask ourselves with the companies that we partner with is, we have to help organizations and kind of acknowledge the fact that they're under pressure with not only being able to execute their existing business model, service existing customers better than their competition, but they also have to have a way, we also have to weigh collectively in this room, to sustainably explore these new opportunities for innovation and deliver things to market. The way that we help our clients think through this paradigm is really with these complementary mindsets. So the way that we think about this mental model is really around, kind of consider this as like waypoints on a flight path, kind of a continuous flight path. On the left-hand side, we have design thinking. I'm sure a lot of folks in the room are familiar with design thinking. It's all about generating ideas, observing customers, producing prototypes that are usable, valuable, and feasible. We feel that a lot of organizations, whether they're services providers like Moonshot or even organizations who are on the cutting edge, who have operationalized design thinking as a capability, really stop with prototypes, right? Stop with Post-its and prototypes, which I think is good. But we see a lot of organizations fall down and crossing that chasm from prototypes and ideas into digital products and experiences that see the light of day. And we bring to the table a methodology and a framework which is all around what we call lean innovation. The next couple slides here, I'll basically kind of peel these back and kind of talk about how we help clients go on this path together. So firstly, with design thinking, we have a direct nod to a process called the design sprint process, which is created and popularized by Google Ventures. What we love about it is that it's time-boxed, right? This is a 5-day process that starts with a big, audacious goal in a very structured and facilitated way, kind of moves through mapping, sketching, deciding, prototype, and at the end of the day, you have a prototype. It's usually a lower fidelity prototype, at least in the first iteration, that's been validated with real customers and users. Beyond the activities themselves, I think one of the key ingredients to conducting a successful design sprint is really having the right people in the room. So on the left-hand side here, we've called out just some typical business units or cross-discipline groups that are typically represented with the clients that we work with. Having someone on the product owner or the decision maker is obviously probably the most important role to have represented here, but then it's all about cross-functional. On the right-hand side, we typically approach these types of workshops with a three-pronged discipline group. Digital product management, which is the group that I represent, what we're calling next generation user experience, which are folks from traditional user experience backgrounds who really understand the value and the opportunity that these systems of intelligence technologies can bring to bear. And then rounding it off with our solutions architecture and development team, so people who can keep feasibility and the ability to bring things to market top of mind. Since we only have a couple minutes, I don't want to bore people to death, but essentially what this design sprint looks like basically from day to day is you're starting with mapping, right? So actually you start with defining and identifying what the key problem and the key challenge is. Then basically each day is dedicated to a set of focused activities, starting with mapping, so identifying a simple customer journey and then honing in on what the focus of the journey or the pain point is going to be. Sketching through a series of divergent activities, kind of coming up with possible solutions and putting those pen to paper. Deciding is all about coming back together as a group and really picking winners. Prototype is selecting the right tool and then building the prototype, and then lastly it ends with testing with real customers. So that kind of rounds out what we're calling the design thinking aspect. But as we know, like we talked about before, organizations that come up with really awesome ideas and really are able to build those into low fidelity or high fidelity prototypes, that's not enough in the world that we live in, right? So what we do is we come to the table with an approach that's based on lean innovation. And one of the key things, one of the key components of lean innovation is a concept called the minimum lovable product. I'm sure everyone has heard of the minimum viable product, right? I don't think I need to go over that. This is just a very small semantic change on that. It was created by a company, I believe, called the Happy Startup School. And although it seems like a semantic change, kind of replacing the V with a heart, it really has a major impact on the way that organizations think about launching digital products effectively and quickly, right? So if the MVP is focused on that version of a product that brings the maximum amount of learning, validated learning using the least amount of time and resources, the minimum lovable product is about delivering the maximum amount of love in the experience to your most enthusiastic customers. It's more than just an acronym, right? It's actually a mindset with how we approach identifying and building digital products and experiences. I've called out just a few of the core tenets here, which you can read through. A couple things that I'll call out is being clear of the why before the what and the how, right? I think that really is rooted in this design thinking mindset of empathy, kind of walking many miles in your customer's shoes. Item number 3 there around embracing constraints. One of the major observations that I get when I talk about that 5-day design sprint methodology is a lot of organizations are like, there's no way you can get anything done in 5 days. Like, that's crazy. It's just not enough time. And I'd say, having been through several of these, you'd be very surprised with the amount of awesome ideas and real, although they're fake since they're prototypes, but real experiences that are able to be produced by a cross-functional team is very inspiring. Make sure that you're solving both big problems that are valuable to customers, but then also ones that really can make a difference. And then the last thing, item number 6 here is the minimum lovable product is really, in its core tenet, it only matters once it's been launched and it's actually a production-worthy product. So you have to make sure that we're identifying as a part of this process how the product can evolve over time against a broader strategy. Beyond just the talk about the minimum lovable product, kind of wrapping up here, we believe in lean innovation, kind of to go back to that continuous loop, really needs to be a capability that is kind of sustained and operationalized within the organization. And then one of the ways that we help companies think about this is you have to define what your goals of innovation are, right? Like, what does innovation mean? It can mean a billion different things to a billion different people. The framework that we use to think about this is really focused around your business model and around the customers that you serve. So if you think about categorizing the different innovative opportunities and ideas that you have, a portion of them will be focused on exploiting or executing the existing business model. So the products and services that you have alongside the customers that you work with, so finding ways to become more operationally efficient. Another portion could be dedicated to extending your business model. So whether it's having your existing products and services and finding new customers or new segments to reach, or maybe developing net new products and services, but kind of focusing on your same customers. And then the top right quadrant there is really a portion of exploring those innovative, I hate to use the word, but those disruptive business models that are net new and could be game changers in your industry. After we've had the opportunity to kind of align on the what, right? Why are we doing innovative products? What does that mean with your company? We like to use this portfolio-based view of what innovation can mean when you're talking about operationalizing the capability. This is a mental model that was created by a gentleman named Stephen Blank. And what I love about it is it really helps you think about, okay, if I'm a part of an organization, I can really think about what innovation means to me, and then treat the different opportunities and projects that I have in a portfolio view. By that I mean, like a general rule of thumb, it's clearly dependent on the organization, but it's the 70-20-10, right? So if an organization is thinking about innovation, well, 70% of their ideas and projects should be focused on getting better at their core, right? Those process innovation things. 20% should be dedicated to extending how that business model can evolve beyond product services. And then lastly, you have to dedicate at least some time, roughly 10%, to exploring what are those new capabilities out there that could really change the game for my company. So in summary, hopefully this has been a helpful conversation, at least to kind of peel back some of the secret sauce that we use and we help our clients along this journey. And I wanted to leave you with another quote here, which is really, I think, just kind of wraps up the day nicely. Of this, a lot of the conversations today have been focused on these are great opportunities. Really, what's important is you have to be able to think big, how this impacts your brand, your customers, your entire ecosystem. You have to start small, because speed to market is obviously the most critical characteristic. And then you got to be able to move quickly through iteration and through continuous testing. Do we have any time for questions?